most earth-breaking, ground-shaking, but never media show money-taking, the man, the myth, the legend, the most electrifying villain in all of YouTube entertainment. And I can tell you right now, Zod did not make any deals with the devil. I am the devil of your earth. No, today I am here to talk about and give my thoughts after a second watch of a movie that I have wanted to talk about now for quite some time. There were some controversies, some things surrounding it, and I wanted to kind of wait for the controversy to die down and to just actually be able to talk about the fucking movie, because there's a couple of movies that come out where I feel like the talk around them kind of ruins an objective view on the movie, and this is one for sure. And of course, the movie I will be discussing is Late Night with the Devil. So I guess the first important thing to get out of the way of this review before I dive into the movie itself is to talk about the controversy surrounding the movie to give people an idea of what the hell is going on. So the controversy around this movie was that apparently there was some AI-generated art that was used. I dove into this. I looked into what the big deal was around this and stuff like that. And I know the discussion of AI-generated art in general. So the whole deal is it is people using artwork that is basically ripped off or computer generated, passing it off as their own. There's some points of that it could be useful and help animators like kind of speed up the process. There's some points that it's a good way to rip off artwork and that people will not be credited for the work that they do. As far as it goes, in this one particular situation, I'm going to be real and honest with my personal feelings. I don't know if this is right. Maybe I'll get some pushback on my ideas about it, because I know there's a hell of a lot of people who felt like this was like the worst crime we had ever seen. And I'm just going to come out and say, after viewing the movie, hearing what bits were lifted and the whole thing surrounded it, I'm going to go under the banner that it's a stupid fucking argument. I think that it is very, it feels disingenuous to me that some of the conversation around it has been, and how great this movie is, has been kind of tainted with this whole thing. Do I think that the way it's placed, which I'll explain when I get into spoilers, this first bit is non-spoiler take on this movie. I think that it's kind of ridiculous. I think people talking about boycotting it or whatever was a step too far. I don't really give a shit the way that it was used. I understand. I am a gamer, and coming from the video game space and knowing with like loot boxes and stuff is kind of my metric for what people feel about this. And when you let one thing go, then companies will continue the trend because they got away with it and they saved money. Now, how much money this movie saved using the particular thing it did or all of that, I'm not sure. And to be quite honest, I don't know if anybody will know the exact amounts of money or the time or whatever that they saved using this fucking random piece of artwork. I think the whole thing was fucking ridiculous. I get the both sides of the argument, but I side on the fact that I do fucking critiques, and I will not denigrate everybody's hard work, and especially the actors and production team and the cinematographer and shit who put hard-earned work into this, and then this fucking thing comes up, and I think it's one group that might be at fault with this, maybe even the directors, whatever, but I'm not going to judge a whole entire movie and lower a score or not see a movie or boycott a movie or be like, oh my God, I regret seeing this movie because of this thing that was going on. No, it's fucking stupid. Now, the most I can relate this to is I'm more upset with Scream coming out than I am with this film. to me, Scream and the controversy surrounded that impacts the movie directly. This really doesn't affect the movie, and I'll get into the reasons why it doesn't later on in this review. But to me, to denigrate the rest of the hard work that was done in this film for one thing that was maybe a director or who knows a company or the fucking artist wanted to try something new out. And, you know, I understand the backlash was there. AI generated stuff is a very big hot topic. I know in certain instances it's been used to take the pictures of like famous stars or whatever and put them in pornographic pictures and things like that, and I don't agree with that shit. I know it's got its place too in the gaming world as well, and certain shady things going on there, but I think this is one of those situations where I don't think this little thing affects the rest of the enjoyment of the movie. I don't think this one little bit should be the thing that is a judging factor for anybody going to see this movie. And if you're in the space and in the discussion and you're a reviewer talking about this, I understand the urge as reviewers to have to cover things like this, but I think taking a hard stance one way or the other is a biased way of looking at this movie. And maybe my bias in Scream 7, I'll still go and see it because that's what I do. I review things for you, but I'm not going to endorse it with money. I'm going to kind of wait to see it as cheaply as I'm not going to let that affect my overall judgment of this film. So if you have major issues with that, let me know. If you didn't know about this controversy, but it's just some scenes that were in between that act as sort of a commercial break or a little standby thing, or is the art that they're talking about. I don't know. There's some tassels in it or something, and there's something in the stitching of the art where they did little touch-ups, but it was wholesale ripped from something else. Looked kind of like a clip art thing. It's very cheap looking. I am not going to base my sole judgments and downgrade someone because of this stupid fucking thing. I think in this case, it's a very nonsensical argument. I understand both sides, but I don't think, for me at least, it doesn't affect the enjoyment of this film. So that's my stance on it. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. Personally, I don't give a shit. I'm going to rate the movie based on the merits of the films. And what a film. So the first portion of this is just going to be a non-spoiler, but the second half, and I will give warnings throughout, will be spoilers giving specifics into the story. So if you're watching this right now, the first half is non-spoiler, just to give you an idea of my general thoughts and feelings. I'll rate it, and then I'm going to go into spoilers and give you specific details about the movie that I like. But this first half is non-spoilers, so stick around. I'll give you a little idea of this movie, who's in it, and all that good jazz. So, Late Night with the Devil is about a Halloween night in 1977 where a late night talk show host interviews a psychiatrist and has a young teenager on who is the sole survivor of a satanic cult ritual. And he is a very desperate show host, and this is during the time where he is competing in the ratings with Johnny Carson, and he wants to be the best television host around. He's like up there, he's right at the cusp, but due to tragedy in his personal life, he had to step away, and this is his last shot to finally eclipse Johnny Carson and bring his show, Night Owls, into the top of the ratings. And so, hey, Laura, what's up? So that's kind of the setup for this show. So the actors we have in here is one of my favorite, most underrated actors, David Dastmalchian, who has been in a ton of movies. You've seen him, and he is a very good character actor, and this is his first leading role. And I got to tell you right off the bat, he nails it out of the park. But along with that, we have Laura Gordon and Ina Bliss, who plays the person who may or may not be possessed by the devil. So I know what you guys are thinking, right? This is another one of those exorcist kind of movies, whatever. There is a found footage element, so already it's got stigmas working against it. But this is a very particularly interesting in the found footage genre because honestly, it's not really found footage in the traditional sense. The first half of this movie is documentary style, which gives you all of the details you need to know about the host of this show. And then it's shot as if you are watching an episode of a late night television show, which I found that to be highly interesting. So they have the bits where they do the playing the host on stage and he comes out and says a couple of funny jokes and he has a back and forth with his colleague, and they do the little banter and they do like, hey, come on, all that stuff. It's got a very, if you like late night shows and you appreciate that format of television or you grew up with that 70s style of television show, I think this will right away grab your attention. And then it splits into when they go into a commercial break and you get black and white footage. And this is the behind the scenes that the people aren't seeing, but we're just seeing. Almost like they're filming stuff for posterity. You look younger, Zod. Bitchy does good work. Yeah. I shaved a little bit, so, thank you. So this here is kind of split into these different segments. The documentary, the first 10 to 15 minutes of this just kind of sets up what you're going to do. The show part is what we're seeing as the audience, and then kind of what the world is seeing. So that's our POV. And then the black and white stuff is like stuff we're not meant to see. It could have been like gathered after what happens. And of course, being called Late Night with the Devil, I'm pretty sure everybody already knows shit's not going to go well. But this is set up as the dude's last show, and he's doing a Halloween special. So he has this guest on who is a psychiatrist who has this little girl who is possessed, and she's been working with her. And she wrote a book called Conversations with the Devil, and he presents it as interviewing her, and then he's got a psychic and he's got a skeptic, or a guy who debunks psychics. If you guys remember, like back in the day, his character is based loosely on a real life magician who switched from being a magician to a person who debunks and calls out frauds. And the psychic guy is super good, and I'm trying to look up his name because it gives me, I think it's Fosasso Bazzi or something like that. The dude is really good, and it fits with the 70s styles where they ham it up, and he's doing the con job psychic thing where he basically asks questions and gets you to tell him stuff about, the person who died and passed on by asking a bunch of fucking questions. And now what this movie does well, and it's throughout the whole entire movie, is make you question if what you're seeing is actually happening. And it doesn't do it frustratingly where you just don't know what the answers are. It just gives you that little seed of doubt. So when shit goes down and what happens, it just makes you completely, utterly question everything you've watched up until that point. Because it's in that 70s style, and because you have the psychic, and then you have this guy who comes on who debunks psychics, and what he says makes sense. It really adds to this mystery of, okay, was this real? Was this not real? What am I really watching? Is what I'm seeing actually happening, or is it in the mind? And it does something, which I'll get into spoilers later, and I'll warn you about, and why I have to go a little bit more in depth with this review to really unpack why this is such a great movie. But just going in and not knowing anything, just know it's 70s style, shot like a Johnny Carson show. And if you love that, definitely watch it. Now, this might be my favorite horror movie of this year so far. And to get it out of the way, I rank this movie a 9 out of 10. Bitchy watched it with me. She does not like found footage. She does not like demon possession movies. We very much enjoyed this together. This is one of those movies when you get done watching, and I've watched it twice to get a good sense of how I was going to do this review, because there's a lot of things that aren't made clear or are made clear, but the story sucks you in right away to where it pulls your focus one way, but there's little breadcrumbs that actually do tell the whole story of what is going on and what is actually the whole deal behind this. And David Dastmalchian carries this movie on his back. This is some of the best acting I've seen this year, because he walks a fine line of you having to believe him as this television show host. He has to come out and bring that persona of, like, you know, a Jay Leno or, you know, Johnny Carson or any of these well-known actors, guys. He's got to make you like him. But when you go into the black and white scenes and you actually see who he is outside of the show, he's so fucking likable. But he also has some dark shit in his past. And so as an actor, he's got to walk a very fine line of still making you like him throughout this, while also showing us, like I'm sure many talk show hosts, that there's more to him, that the persona is different from the man. And it's a very, very tough role for any actor to really pull off. And David Dastmalchian does a really great job, and he plays the name of his talk, or the name of the host, is Jack Delroy, which is a cool fucking name just to begin with. I don't know why. It just, like, got me off jump. I was like, Jack Delroy, that sounds like someone I'd watch. What the other great thing about this is that they can get away. This is a smaller production kind of film, and they can get away with some terrible CGI because this very much has the feel of the 70s, and you are watching some of the CGI sequences as an audience member in that time period. And if anybody remembers the effects from the 70s talk shows and the things that they did that were kind of kooky and stuff, it very much fits into the aesthetics and the style of storytelling that they're going for. And I cannot stretch enough that also the reveals and the whole situation that's happening is very intriguing. It's a kind of movie where I didn't feel like it dragged. Now, there's some reviewers that say there is drag, and there's a slight little lull as they're setting certain things up, but I don't feel like at any point it took me out of the film. Even the black and white scenes are very interesting, and by the time you get to the halfway point, you are already invested and locked in into this, and more importantly, you're really locked in into Jack Delroy saving his show. They set up very well that this is his last chance. He's had some things happen to him, and you just really want this guy to be successful. Like, as an audience member, it kind of gets you to a point that you want him to succeed, and you kind of start not caring, even when weird shit is going down, about, like, it. You're like, oh man, like, you're at one point where you're like, this is a bad idea, but at the same time, you don't want Jack to lose his show. And I think that is the greatest thing that this movie does. Unlike a lot of found footage, it is found footage, but it doesn't feel like found footage. There's no shaky camera. There's no jittering around. There's one locked position because it is a talk show host, and there's multiple cameras. And this is the first one in the found footage genre that makes sense why they're filming everything. The black and white scenes are for, like, you know, when they do the behind the scenes, like, kind of a documentary. So this is set up as a documentary on Jack Delroy's life, and then we are watching the footage of that night, and it's cutting to the scenes behind the scenes, like a story would about a particular figure in their field. So all of it makes sense to why we're getting these different cuts. It's not like a Blair Witch or a Paranormal Activity where you're like, okay, like drop the camera and run. What are you doing? It's like, no, you can't run. You are an audience member there this night. This is the story of Jack Delroy and everything that happened on that Halloween night in 1977. And I really appreciate aesthetically how they never break that to take me out of the immersion. The only reason why I'm not giving this a perfect 10 to me, and it's more of a 9, is because there are certain things, and unfortunately to get into those certain things, that'll be in my spoiler section. But for non-spoilers, those certain things are just things I gotta nitpick as someone who critiques stuff. It's very hard to be a perfect movie, but for me, this is damn close, as close as you can get. So to really get in depth into what is going on, because this story is very simple. Basically, there's a show. He brings on this little girl who may or may not be possessed. Shit goes down. You could pretty much guess, but there's layers in that. But that's the simplest explanation. And if you haven't seen a trailer, or even if you have seen the trailer, it really doesn't tell you a shit about what's going on in the story. So I appreciate the marketing around this, because you watch this and you would think it was a standard demon possession or found footage demon possession, and that's not what this is. There is a lot more here. And when you get pulled into the story right to the ending, you're going to be mesmerized and wanting to know what in the fuck is going on. And the crazy thing about it is you do get answers without getting all of the answers. This movie does a great job of leaving the viewer to piece together and kind of in their mind work out the rest of what's going on. And that is in my negatives. And unfortunately, to get into that, I'd have to do spoilers because I'd have to break down specific things. But there is particular things, especially towards the ending, when I feel like it kind of puts a lot on the audience and really forces them to pay attention. And in some aspects, you might have to rewatch this again to pick up exactly what the ending is about and what it's trying to tell you. And some people might go, oh, no, it's simple. But for most general audiences, and I've heard this complaint a lot, that they like the movie until the ending. But I think the ending is what brings the movie together. And hopefully I'll break it down into a sense to where people will be like, oh, okay, I get it. But I feel like that's the only really negative in this film. Is it's a bold choice. It's a bold choice, Cotton. I was like, that is a ballsy move. You're putting a lot of trust, especially these days, because it gets into some confusing territory where you are really forced to, for yourself, figure out what is true and what isn't. And if you look at the different clues throughout the movie, it does have an answer. And I think when I talk about movies that I give a high score to, a big thing that plays into it is rewatchability. Even the corniest movie like Blue Poo, Blood and Honey 2, I'll rewatch that because I just had so much fun with it. And I think that when you're ranking a movie, a big factor into how good the movie is for you or for people should be how much you could rewatch it. And Late Night with the Devil begs you to watch it multiple times. It has all of the answers that you're searching for, but it's not a movie that's going to give it to you on the first watch. It's going to present the story to you, and then it's going to leave you with something, and it's going to force you to be like, okay, the answers are there. They were always there, but you got to really watch it and really look at everything that's going on and what's said and what's not said, and the way that especially David Dastmalchian, he does a lot of subtle acting in this movie. And even his character and how you feel about him, you really got to analyze everything that happens in order to get a good sense of who he is. And to me, he feels like the most real character I've seen this year as far as these kinds of movies. Like the movie is very grounded until it isn't. once again, I got to get into spoilers to give you my thoughts on that. I know that's a very vague statement, but this first half is not giving away anything. But it's a very grounded movie until you get to the parts where it's not. And then he is the anchor to grounding this film. And I think he walks a very fine line of having to be believable and having to be human and having to be someone you could identify with in this situation. I said my problem with the movie Infested was that I didn't get invested in any of the characters, but in this movie, every character here, the psychic, the skeptic, the psychiatrist, the back and forth he has with his partner, and kind of what's going on there. The guy who's the the guy who's the director of the show, who's pushing him towards this inevitable doom situation, and then him himself and his drives and his ambitions. These all drive this story to its very terrifying, confusing, and in a sense kind of bleak conclusion that you get to. And this movie is definitely a big what the fuck kind of movie, especially when you get to the ending. And it's not a movie that's going to leave you in a very good place. Hey, D, what's up? I am giving my non-spoiler thoughts for Late Night and the Devil, and then I will warn you I'm going to go into spoilers to really break down the movie and kind of piece it together for you, and scenes I like, scenes I don't. If you haven't seen this movie, it's on Shudder. You can watch it for absolutely free. If you have Amazon Prime, you can get Shudder, which then I think it's only like $4, whatever. It's really cheap. I would recommend it. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. This might be, unless something comes and knocks it off, my number one for my top 10 horror movies. And I'm not joking. It's got the best performances. It's the most well shot. It's the best acted of this year. And I've seen a lot of like high 8s, 7 kinds of movies. So this is a year for horror. And I am super excited because there's still so many great horror movies coming out. And there's one with my boy that might dethrone it, and you all know Nick Cage has 2 horror movies this year, and I saw one. I haven't talked about Arcadia. I will be doing a review on that, but I don't think that's going to be as high as his second movie coming out called Long Legs. And if you guys haven't seen the previews, I still have no fucking clue. Definitely go watch a trailer for it because it gives nothing away, but it looks interesting as hell, and it's another one of these demonic things. I don't know. The trailer's very vague, but it's up there with one of my most anticipated horror movies, along with this movie, were 2 of my most anticipating movies. And I gotta say, this movie did not let me down. It's a 9 out of 10. Go check it out on Shudder. It is a great movie, great acting, mind fucked, twisted kind of ending. And yeah, if you don't want anything spoiled, go definitely check it out. I approve of it. I love it. I think it's one of the best horror movies that have come out so far. And that's saying a lot because there's been a lot of good movies. But I think this movie beats them because it's grounded in a lot of realism, but it's got a lot of surreal elements. And I think the greatest thing is that most people were confused about the ending. And I will break it down so that it's a lot easier if you've already seen it, or kind of what I got out of it, which is littered with clues through the movie. But if you haven't, go out and check it. And then, you can come back and see the back end of this review and get my spoiler thoughts on it. But for right now, it's a good movie, and definitely go and check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed, especially if you like talk shows. If you like that format, this perfectly captures the 70s aesthetics, the talk show feel, makes you feel like you are there as a studio audience member watching this crazy shit unfold. And it makes you feel like you're in a documentary about the success and the fall of this Jack Delroy, and almost like he existed in our world. And keep in mind, this is totally fictional. So for them to pull that off, I think is a great accomplishment of this film. I think it is how you do these kind of movies. And I really hope that the found footage genre takes notes from this and takes the best parts of this movie and really implements that, because I've become burnt out on found footage. I've seen literally just about every found footage movie out there, even the low budget ones, the knockoff Blair Witches and stuff like that. And I think this is the most creative and unique in the genre that I've seen. And that's the best phrase that I can give. So this first half hour has been talking about that stupid AI controversy that was going around about it. I talked about some non-spoiler stuff. Yeah, hopefully this gets more people to watch it. Now, spoiler warning ahead. I'm going to spoil some things so I can really give you an in-depth review of this movie, because it's been out for a while. It's still in theaters, but it's now on Shudder, so everybody can watch it. So if you haven't seen the movie, here's your warning. I'm going to do some spoilers, so if you don't want anything spoiled, then, you've been warned. Okay, so what is Late Night with the Devil about? Holy fucking shit. This movie took me 3 times to watch this movie. So David Dastmalchian is a television host named Jack Delroy. And the first half of this movie is basically explaining his situation. He was on top of his game, and he's number 2 to Johnny Carson. And it is implied that he was part of a secret group that are rich and powerful people. And I think they were like the Redwood something. I forget the exact name of the group, but they are kind of almost in relation to like our real world, the shit Tom Cruise is in and stuff like that. They're these powerful people who it's implied that they do these satanic rituals out in the woods, and that everybody who has done it has obtained some kind of fame. Now, they don't confirm until much later whether or not Jack Delroy partook in this, but they allude to the fact he might have been. And he meets up with this woman, and he gets married and everything. And then, for no reason at all, seemingly out of nowhere, his wife gets cancer. She never smoked, nothing like that. She just developed cancer, and she dies. And at this point, he has one of his highest rated shows when she comes on, and she's in the late stages of cancer. And he does this like heart-wrenching interview, and it's one of the highest rated shows that he has ever put on. Then after that, he kind of disappears from the late night scene, and then he comes back. And it does a great job, especially in the first 15 minutes of this film, setting up the progression of who this character is. It also gives the audience a sense to really connect with Jack Delroy. And David Dastmalchian is such a fucking great actor. This guy needs more work. The emotions, and you just want to give the guy a hug, because when it reaches this point and you see what he's going through, this is a great way to set us up to feeling sympathetic, because a lot of crazy shit is going to go down. And you need you need the audience to buy into the fact that you want this guy to continue with what his crazy fucking plan is. So the plan is the grand idea. And when you hear this without seeing the context of why he's doing this, you think, what a fucking idiot. But he brings on a girl who is possessed by a demon. She was saved by this psychiatrist, and I want to say Laura Gordon plays the psychiatrist. She was saved from this satanic cult who was doing some kind of ritual. And the gist is that I don't know if they were successful. I want to say they were, but whatever it was, by the time they got to her, all the cult members are killed, and this girl is saved, but something tagged along with her, so to speak. And this lady has been working with her to try to figure out how to have her, I guess, essentially live with this demon possession. It's not so much trying to exorcise the demon, but trying to control what's inside of her, which is on its face already an interesting concept. But David Dastmalchian's character, Jack, wants to fucking summon the demon and summon this possession on live television for the peak of his show, because it's sweeps week and his show has one last chance, and if they don't sweep during this, then his show will be canceled. So all of the pressure is on him to make this one show that's just going to fucking demolish everybody. It's just going to fucking propel him to the top. And so, as an audience member, you're watching this, and it does such a good job, and Desmulchian does such a great acting job to where you really get to a point, especially when it first starts out and nothing strange is happening, you really want this guy to succeed. I cannot highlight enough how great of an acting job it is to where you know this is a bad idea. He knows it's a bad idea. His whole fucking staff knows it's a bad idea, but you still want him to succeed because you don't want to see him lose a show. Now, where the complication comes in, remember the part, keep this in your mind. He was in some kind of an unknown secret society, and there's some shady shit going on there. So just keep that in the back of your mind. That'll come up later. So they're going through the show, and little things start happening. He has this psychic, and I'm just going to call him Christo because that's such a fucking awesome / like cheesy 70s name. But Christo comes on, and he's this medium, and he brings him on, and he's trying to work his thing. And there's some hints that this is set up, and certain audience members were picked, which I like because I feel like a lot of talk shows do this when they have on these kind of guests. They have people planted in the audience, right? And it's implied in the beginning when Christo is doing this reading that it's kind of set up to where it makes people believe this is happening. And this is just kind of the like thing that's luring you in and kind of making you question, okay, is this going to be full of shit? Because obviously this guy is full of shit. And so Christo does his thing where he's like, oh, did someone die? And he's doing that fucking guessing shit that I hate, that people think. I believe there are real psychics, but these are the kind of people that give that whole thing a bad name, right? He's asking questions, and then he's like, oh, is there a Joe in here? And blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, that was my father, you know. It's those things where you'll hit somebody in the audience who has a family member who passed away by that name, and we've seen it 1,000 times. But what makes it interesting is the psychic then all of a sudden stops, and his eyes start rolling in the back of his fucking head, and he says a name, and the name is the nickname that Jack Delroy had for his wife, which wasn't part of the script. And this is where you start to see him kind of think that he's not like, it's a very slow progression in this movie, but he starts to kind of feel like, wait a second, you know, it isn't part of the script. It's a little out of the ordinary. Now, I'm not going to break down everything because I'd be here for a fucking hour and a half of the movie, but I'm just going to kind of skip around so that you know the scenes that really intrigue me. So they're showing the black and white scenes, and as you're getting these black and white scenes, everybody as the night goes on is starting to be really uncomfortable. So they bring out this skeptic, and he does his thing. And the great thing they do is this skeptic is an asshole. And the dude who plays him very well. Now, he's not a complete asshole. There's some funny shit that he says, but he's just enough of an asshole where you don't want him to be right about what he's saying. And he has this challenge that'll give $500. And I guess back in the 70s, that was a lot of money. And he's going to give $500 if the person can prove that whatever the supernatural thing, it's happening. It's not a bunch of bullshit. And so with that, he's never been proven wrong. And so right now, it's planting all this stuff in your mind that you're like, well, yeah, you know, of course that would be logical or whatever. And what the movie does very well is plant these seeds of doubts before it gives you the spectacular things, where part of you is like, oh shit, I think this is real. And it very much gives the reaction of someone watching the show would have as a reaction. Only with us, we're getting behind the scenes. So it's almost like you're getting a little bit more, and then weird stuff starts to happening, and this is where you really got to pay attention to the film. As you go through in the black and white scenes, there's little throwaway lines and little off things where they'll talk about power outages and the stuff not functioning right, and things going off, certain cameras not working and things like that. And those are the things where, hey, what's up, Sandra? Good to see you. Just to let you know I'm into my spoiler section of Late Night with the Devil, and I'm just kind of going over the scenes and things that I like. But anyways, so they're giving you little hints throughout this that what you're seeing may or may not be real. But when you get these black and white scenes, it's as if you're getting a peek into stuff that the other audience member isn't seeing. So then it kind of plays with that. Is this actually happening? Is it not happening? Now, the little girl in this is fucking fantastic. And I want to say it's Ina Bliss. She plays the demonically possessed little girl. And just this girl is the best possessed little girl I've ever seen in one of these movies because her character is split into like two kinds of things. It's the innocent little girl and then whatever is possessing her. Now, there's hints and clues along the way that, and this is where I want to get into Jack Delroy's character, that when you first see him, he's this lovable guy, you want him to succeed. But as the story goes on and you find out with this cult and then this group of elite people he's part of that may be doing these rituals, there's little hints in the movie that you have to pay attention to. And I'm not going to go through the whole entire movie because I'd be here for hours trying to explain all the little details. But there's like a thing where this chick goes full fucking possession and she says to Jack, she says, hey, how are you doing? We met a long time ago. Remember that night in the woods? And it's implied in the beginning of the movie that this group meets in this forested area with these tall trees. So he's like, the demon who's possessing the girl says, yes, we've met in the tall trees. And I'm not going to get into lore and what exactly it is. That shit you can all look up. But it's implied that this demon has given these people whatever that they've asked for, but it comes at a price. And it's hinted that for him to get his show, he actually made some kind of deal. And then later to keep his show as part of the bargain, the demon is fulfilling its end. So everything that happens, in a sense, is kind of Jack's fault. And at a lot of points in this film, he has the opportunity to stop it and to just quit where he's at. And the weird part about this movie and what makes it such a conflicting and really in-depth watch is that as a viewer, you do want him to stop, but you don't want him to stop because you know if he doesn't push this as far as it can go, he's going to lose his show. And he's lost his wife. And if he did make a deal, it's kind of implied then, like, what was this all for? Everything he's lost and given up. And a lot of people view it as the character being selfish. I think it adds a lot of depths and layers because it's like, yeah, you know, you kind of make this bargain and you make your way to the top and then you lose your wife or the love of your life. And it's like, this has got to be worth it. Like everything I gave up has to be worth it. Even if it costs my soul, I'm already here. I'm committed to come this far, which is the bigger blow. But when you get to the end, and I'll get there, it's kind of like, was it worth it? Was all of this worth it? So getting back to Christo, he does this bullshit reading, actually channels the wife, and then something happens where he starts fucking vomiting blood. His eyes rolls in the back of his head. And yeah, Christo's the first to go. And there's a point when this happens where even the skeptic guy is starting to kind of be like, there's something not right. And the cool thing is when you do the behind the scenes, you have a lot of people as the night goes on that are starting to be like, no. And one of my favorite people is Jack's sidekick. And I think, I want to say Reyes Arturi. I don't know the actor's name, but he does a great job. And it starts to imply he's a little religious or whatever. He's kind of like Jack's moral compass. And as the night is going on, you have the devil on his shoulder, who is this producer who's like, fuck, man, we're getting the highest fucking ratings ever. We got to keep on going. Like, we are getting calls. People are fucking going nuts. Like, this is the show. And you said this was like our final chance. He's like, this is the show that's going to bring us to the top. And you got his best friend, the person who he riffs off, going, man, this isn't worth it. I don't know what's going on, but this shit is getting crazy. You're inviting some shit that you don't want to. And the scene of the first possession, when the demon first reveals itself, is so fucking well done. And I gotta give kudos to some of the effects. Some of the effects look wonky, and it fits into this 70s aesthetics and style that this movie is going for. So I'm not gonna dock a point on special effects, because I feel like even if they didn't have the budget to do the effect they wanted to, it really kind of gives that feel of watching a 70s talk show and them not having the budget. Like, you know, when they pull off those cheap, the bats flying clearly on a string and going happy Halloween, it makes it feel like you are in a 70s show. And that's just the effects they had at the time. So I don't really dock this for some wonky special effects, and there are some questionable effects in this movie, which is my point deduction. But and the ending. So anyways, people are freaking out, and there comes a point when they first release the demon. She goes full demon phase, starts talking to Jack about his wife and things like that. And the wife plays a major role. We'll get back to that. But she fucking levitates in the air, and the fucking chair lifts. Shit starts exploding in the studio. Shit gets wild, and it does one of those old-fashioned, like, cut to commercial break kind of things. I thought that was a neat little touch, and technical difficulty, whatever. And then you get the black and white behind the scenes where people are, and Jack's over the moon. He's like, this is going to bring our ratings up. The fucking director is like, yeah, we're going to do it. And so you get to the point where now this debunker is starting to ask questions, and he starts to realize that some of the stuff was set up by Jack and the producers. So now as an audience member, you're going, oh, wait, was this all staged? Was this all like part of the show? And here's the part that I think is going to lose a lot of people. They add a sort of elevated horror part to it. Some people say it doesn't fit. But if you follow the course of the movie, it makes a lot of sense, because it goes into playing with the theory of, is this real and is this not? But this magician hypnotizes the whole entire audience and Jack's partner, and makes him think that worms are coming out of him. And he starts like scratching his neck, and these fucking worms come out, and then he rips open his stomach and all these worms come out, and you're thinking, holy shit. And I thought the dude was dead. I was like, holy shit, like, that's a fucking way to go. And then he like says these words and snaps everybody out of it. And so they play back the footage because he's trying to prove a point that this fucking possession is faked. And if you replay the footage, it was just a mass hypnosis. And we were all tricked as an audience member. So they replay the psychiatrist guy or the magician guy hypnotizing everyone. And you see, oh shit, the whole time his best friend was just scratching his skin. There was nothing there. This whole time we were actually hypnotized with the rest of the audience. And so it's kind of like it gets into this whole, like, you are participating in the events because this guy hypnotized you, how they shot the scene. But you play it back, none of it happened. So then he goes, replay her supposedly being possessed. And if it wasn't masked hypnosis, then none of it would have been caught on the tape. But the thing is, when they replay it, all of it happened. So at this point, you're like, holy shit. And they decide to bring out the girl again and the doctor lady with this skeptic to try to debunk it. And the lady in the background who's taking care of the girl, she's like, this is fucked up because apparently he didn't tell her. He put her on the spot with bringing out the Steven. She didn't want to do it. And she's saying, look, this is a very dangerous thing. I've managed to have her in this controlled environment. And she's like, you're playing into this and I don't feel comfortable and blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of implied they might have a thing on the side. Hey there, Jane Creek. Good to see you. I'm just doing a spoiler review for Late Night with the Devil. I'm kind of breaking down the different scenes I like, I don't like. But anyway, so they imply that this might be a mass hypnosis, whatever else. Now, heavy spoiler for the ending, but I'm got to talk about it for the reasons why I like this movie. So at the ending, they bring the girl back out and this skeptic guy. And he's going in hard. And he's kind of an asshole. So you're on the fence whether or not you want this guy to die. Yeah. Yes, definitely go and then come back, watch the rest of my review and see if you agree with it. But here's where it gets confusing. Well, no, this part is pretty straightforward. But there is a lot of implications that maybe Jack knew about the consequences of what was going to happen and that he may have willingly sacrificed his wife in order to get to where he's at. Now put a pin in that. It'll come back later. And so they invite this girl out and finally the demon has had enough of fucking playing hide and go seek. It fucking goes full on. The girl becomes possessed because this guy is going in hard and he does not believe. And I gotta say, this effect may vary with people. I thought it was cool. But her fucking head splits in half and she starts taking like electricity from the audience and she just starts fucking going nuts. And now at this point, the studio audience, because the camera pans towards them, starts running. People are getting fucking electrocuted. Shit is going down. The fucking cool co-host guy gets his fucking neck snapped. It's a great effect. The person who was the skeptic tries to fucking give the demon $500. It's fucking hilarious. He gets brutally killed. And unfortunately, the lady who I think was the most innocent in this situation, the psychiatrist lady, she gets fucking like psychically lifted and her cross she has a cross and she tries to use it. And of course that shit never works in these movies, man. It's a powerful demon. You done let it in. There's no, unless you got a fucking priest with the power of Christ compels you throwing the fucking Bible at the thing, you're fucked. So this thing lifts her in the air and the cross starts going into her neck and fucking damn near saws her head off with her cross and fucking drops her on the ground. And Jack is just fucking looking. And then this is the point of the movie where I think it'll lose a lot of people. But it's very straightforward and it'll answer all of your questions if you pay attention to the scene. So it does this swirly thing like when we got hypnotized the first time. And now it goes back and you start seeing points of Jack's life that weren't explained in the documentary and weren't explained in these little like black and white backstage scene things. And you see him sign a contract for his first television show. You see him in the fucking woods confirming he was part of this elitist thing to make some kind of pact with something to become rich. You see him at the bedside of his dying wife. And this is where the acting is fucking peak perfection. Because throughout the movie, it's hinted his fucking wife is actually there. And you gotta really pay attention, but they break down these stills where you see a visual of an outline of his wife in the background, like her ghost. And it's almost like she's the angel on his shoulder, trying to guide him away from this. But his fucking, I don't want to say greed, because he's way more complex of a character. And I guess you could boil it down to greed, but his drive to be the best has already cost him so much and clouded his judgment. And he's not a bad guy. He's not like a black and white character where you could say, oh, he's a dickhead and he had what was coming to him. He's a flawed man. And he had these ambitions and these goals, and he really did love his wife, and it's very strongly implied. And then the scene shows his wife dying, and he has a dagger. And this dagger was highlighted a couple of times in the movie, and she says, do it. Put me out of my misery. I can't live like that. And she goes, this has to be worth something and stuff. So even his wife, it's kind of implied, hey, sounds like you're swirling things this time, LOL. So it's implied that his wife kind of already knew about this secret society and this deal he made, and that she loved him. They loved each other. And that's the thing that makes it really hard to hate this character. He loved his wife, and it devastated him. And it also feels like she knew the price, and she knew she was the price for him to become famous. But in a sense, she's been trying to steer him and tell him that, enough's enough. He already got to where he needs to be. What's number one at this point? Like, is being number one and beating Johnny Carson really worth all of this shit? He's gotten all of these people killed. And the damage that he's caused, he just didn't create damage in his own life. But he's outwardly destroyed all of these people that believed in him. These people loved him. The production, the set designers. You get a sense in this movie, everybody really believes in Jack. And it's kind of a dual positive and negative for his character, because in his mind, he's doing this for his people, but there's that deep down thing where he's really doing this for himself. He needs to be the best. But there's an element where he does care about the people around him, and he wants them to come with him in this journey. So this is where he is one of the best characters I've seen this year, because it's so nuanced, and David Dastmalchian does such a great job of making him so complex that you really don't know how to feel about Jack's choices. You know it's wrong. You know he fucked over a lot of people. You have a sense he's kind of greedy and he wanted this for himself. But at the same time, he's just so fucking likable that you really wanted him to succeed. And so he has this dagger. He's with his wife, and he's crying. It's a great fucking well-acted scene. Both actors fucking crush it. And he stabs her. And then this is where the confusion shit comes in. It's like we break the hypnosis everyone was under when you were taking the spirit walk through Jack's fucking life, and you're back in the studio, and he stabbed the possessed girl. And everybody's fucking dead around him except for him. And this is where the movie kind of leaves it in a weird place, because it ends with Jack standing there, bunch of fucking bodies, and you hear sirens. So did Jack become famous? Was he blamed as a murderer? He made a deal essentially with the devil. So was the deal, I will make you famous, but it's not how I make you famous, right? It could have been, I'll make you the most fucking infamous person by all of this, because it looks like he fucking went crazy and murdered everyone. Everyone knew his history. Everybody knew he had this grief with his wife dying. And it could go the way that, oh, these cops come, they see all these fucking dead bodies. And of course, he stabbed this girl who you can't prove she was possessed or not. Who knows if the tapes are saved, because the electricity went out and blew all the shit up. I'm gathering through the documentary, it is strongly implied that certain scenes were saved, but the last half is kind of through our own POV. So it's like, do people think he's a murderer now that he went insane on his last show? And it's implied this was the last show of Night Owls ever. So it leaves that up in the air. As an audience member, you kind of have to, make up your own ending. Did he get arrested? Did he become famous? Was the deal fulfilled because he's now considered one of the most famous killers? It's like a Joker situation where he just fucking went nuts, and now he's just known as the guy, the famous fucking late night talk show host who went crazy and killed his whole audience just to become famous. It's like it leaves a lot in the air to where you have to piece together what the true ending is. Now, as far as putting the story together, there were various pieces. Hey, Dean, I don't usually watch a lot of horror, but you have really made this sound good. I thank you for the review. No problem. And hopefully it does attract a lot of people because I do think this is a great movie. Like, this is the longest review I've done for a movie. So hopefully you're enjoying it. But the little bits that you can get from this is, if you watch this the first time, it leaves his character vague as far as was he part of the cult. But if you're listening to the dialogue, the things the demon says, and the clips that they play, they do, in fact, confirm he did make this deal with these rich people. Where it gets murky is the getting the #1 ratings. I don't know if the new deal was him summoning this demon or if this was always part of the contract and the demon is fulfilling its end of the bargain, but not in the way he thinks. It is implied heavily through this movie, and I think a running theme is that everything has a price. And this is to the extreme measures, but there's always a price to pay for the things you want, whether it's working hard, whether it's you work so hard and you give up certain luxuries in your life. But there's kind of an underlining theme that you can't take a shortcut. Nothing in this world is free. I think for him, he saw getting in with these powerful people and making this deal as a quick and easy way to fame. And as you go through his life, I think especially towards the end too, it's alluded to, he starts to realize that a lot of choices he made, there was always a consequence. First, he lost his wife, and now he just basically lost his whole fucking production team and everything. So it was like, if you want this and you're taking the quick way, the easy way, you got to ask yourself what price you're paying for that shortcut, because nothing in life is free. Nothing in this world comes without some kind of something you have to do, right? You want a promotion at your job, you got to work for it. You could make friends with certain people, but that could be, the wrong thing to do. Everything in the world is morally complex, and this movie kind of matches that feeling that this isn't a black and white situation. And I think this is what puts this movie ahead of other found footage movies and ahead of other possession movies, because the possession part is just flavor in this movie. The theme and what the movie's trying to say is the message of the movie. Like, a lot of people are going to focus on the demon shit going down and people dying, but that's not what this movie is about. This movie is about a man who wants to be the best in his field and what he's doing to get there, and these shortcuts he's taking, and the cost and the price for shortcutting what he should have just naturally done on his own. When you see him come out, you feel the charisma. You know this guy can do this. But with the fact that he got his foot in the door making this deal, it kind of makes you wonder, could he have done this on his own? Could he have become famous by just putting in the work, being a stand-up comic, getting his name out there, getting noticed? Like, if he had just done shit how people should do it, would any of this have happened? Would he have still met the same people anyways and been propelled to #1? Like, the movie makes you question, was it worth it? I got as the main gist, like, was this all worth it? Like, we're presented with everything. Here's what happened. Here's this guy. Here's his struggle. You relate to him, but was it worth it in the end? Was him gambling on this one show, putting all of the weight of the world on his shoulders and trying to justify throughout this movie at several points, even when lights are going out, shit's malfunctioning, you saw a fucking little girl levitating. Like, look, I tap out at that. When someone's fucking chair goes like 3 feet in the air and the girl turned a demon face, I'll be like, okay, we got our ratings. This shit needs to stop now. But then the question is, could he have stopped it? You made a deal. You made a bargain. Like it says, it's late night with the devil. You made a deal with the devil. And I don't think this thing is exactly the devil. It's implied it's kind of a demon. But there's suggestions and there's fan theories that the devil is actually in the crowd. There's this one person they focus on, keep an eye on it. They show them several times. It's this person in this skeleton Halloween costume. Now, it's the 70s, so it looks cheap, but the way this thing, and I say thing because it's almost like a person, but very mechanical. They're always looking at the camera when they zoom in. They always got this eerie look back, and it kind of makes you think that the devil is sitting in this show as this shit is happening. And when the shit goes down, that thing or entity, whatever it is, maybe person, who knows, they don't seem to move. They're unfazed. So a little nugget, little thing for you guys to look in if you've already seen the movie or if you're trying to get clues on what the fuck the movie was about. That's another little neat piece that they put in there. There's always just this one person in a fucking old school skeleton costume, like the old Spirits of Halloween kind of costume where it looks like the skeleton with the fucking mask and the full body thing. But there's something eerie about it. And it's like, it doesn't present itself as eerie for at least like a good 30 minutes into this movie. It's very much like a straight show. Everything is happening, but as it goes on, it's little subtle things that start happening. And it's even little things like that sprinkled throughout the normal stuff that was always there that makes you know that this filming, this last airing, something's not right. Something is off. Something is going to happen. And I think that's why I had to do a breakdown of this movie, because this is the reason why my rating is so high, because there's very subtle horrors. And one thing I appreciate, there's no fucking jump scares. I hate jump scares. Jump scares does not make your movie better. There's no like boom or anything like that. It's subtle tension that's building throughout the whole entire run of this movie. It's like an underlining, you know, the title of the movie, you know this guy is too fucking likable, and that all these people are going to meet a bad end. And you feel that oppressive feeling as you're watching this, where you're just, and they don't throw it at you all at once. They even, like I said earlier in this review, put those seeds of doubt. So you're never 100% sure what's going on. And it's done on purpose to build up the tension. So when shit goes down, you're like, holy fucking shit. Like, and there's a general thought when you get to the end of this movie, like, what the fuck did I just watch? Like, okay. And the other thing is that made this movie so high for me is it makes you think. What could he have done? Was it always fated to happen? Like, is there a point in this where he could have stopped it? Like, where's the line where he could have said no? Or was he always doomed to do this course because he made the deal? Will I have nightmares after watching this movie? The more I have to concentrate on something tends to stay in my mind. I think by intention, this is meant to stay in your mind. If that stuff bothers you, yeah, you might have a hard time sleeping, thinking about it. But it's very hard to describe. For me, Infested more got under my skin because of how they made the spiders move in that movie. I think that more creeped me out. This movie, to me, is more of a thought piece. And I think that them highlighting the main character of Jack more just makes you think about the situation. Like, it's not so much the terror of the movie or the horror aspects, because some of the special effects will have you laughing. It's like, except for the effect at the end where her face splits in half and she's fucking annihilating people. It's more of the concept and the story has you thinking about it by the end of this. And Jack Delroy. And you're like, holy shit, was like there nothing he could do? Was he always going to be locked in this? Was there a point where he could have stopped this? Should he not have made the deal? Like, it's more of a movie that makes you question what the movie presented to you, and it makes you analyze it and think about it. And I think it's a good kind of analogy to people in general. Like, before you do something, think about the consequences of your actions. And it's the most basic thing, and it's a basic concept to really shoot for a movie, but it's so hard for people to understand. And I think this movie really makes you, through Jack's character, it really highlights that be careful about the choices you make, because some things you do in life, whether big or small, you can't take them back and you will pay for those consequences. And I'm a strong believer that karmically, even these shitty people or whatever, they get what's coming to them eventually, because you can't put out that much negativity in the world and not have it come back to you. And I think this movie really highlights that fact, is that Jack, no matter how good he was and no matter how much people loved him and things like that, through his own personal flaws and through the poor choices he made in his life, he was the instrument of his own downfall. And maybe he got what he wanted, but he didn't get it in the way he expected. And much like life, you might get what you want, but it's not always what you need. You might get what you think and achieve what you think you want to achieve, but it might not be worth the cost at the end of the day. How many comedians and actors and things like that you see who are famous, and we look at them and we go, oh, look at how they got the new car, they got a great house, they look like they have the perfect life. And then you find out they've done a bunch of fucked up shit, or they're not very nice people, or they fucking suck as individuals. And it's like, that feels like that's the cost that it takes to be in that line of work. And I think it's also kind of a commentary on that. Like, it's a very cutthroat industry. You got to do a lot of fucked up shit. You got to also put on this persona to people to buy into you are this great person. And in real life, you're just as flawed as anybody else. Even being a content creator, I've come across this. Like, I portray a certain image. I'm very bold. I'm very upfront. That is who I am in real life as well. But it's not everything that I am. And I think that's why I could connect with this movie too, because you can clearly see he is this talk show host, but he is Jack, and he is a very flawed individual. And I think if you look at the different things that the movie is conveying, it's not conveying, oh, this is a possession movie. This is about some fucked up shit. We got to go stop this demon. Good versus evil. It's not that simple. It's a man. It's his struggle. It's his rise to fame and his eventual fall, and the steps he took to get there. And I think that's what separates this movie from all of the other fucking ridiculous Exorcist movies that come out and all the other stupid fucking things where, like, they boil it down to, oh, it's good and evil, we beat the demon, and that's the end of the movie, right? Even The Exorcist, which, don't get me wrong, one of my favorite exorcism movies, and I think every other exorcism movie that's come before it has directly ripped it off, except for a few, like Where Evil Lurks. That was really good. This is not about that. This is about a person trying to make it in their given field, and you decide on who they are. It's kind of like it leaves it up to you to decide, was he good? Was he bad? Are you indifferent? And the message of the whole thing is there is no shortcuts in life. You cannot just go somewhere. You cannot deal with powerful and these rich people. You can't do things like that and not expect to face some kind of consequence. You can't expect to not have some kind of price. There's always a price to pay. There's always something you got to give up, whether it's a piece of yourself and who you are, or whether you do some fucked up shit and you get other people hurt for what you want to achieve. And I feel like, and maybe I'm reading too deep, maybe some people will see this review and go, bro, it's not that deep. You know, he just fucking made a deal with the devil, shit happened, and that's just what happened. And if you got that, that's cool. But for me, I like looking at underneath the surface, and even in directors' interviews and stuff like that, they kind of allude to the monster and the demon part. That's not the point of the film. That's just to keep people interested. And I find it very cool when directors can make a movie that has a little bit more under the hood. And it has a smart story. Like, people do political messaging all the time, but this is a commentary on people and success, very smartly written. And it's done by Colin Carnes and Cameron Carnes. And I'll tell you right now, I will be on the lookout for anything that they write and direct, because the level of writing and directing and camera work and just the way I've been thinking about this movie days after I've watched it, to me, that's what makes a great film. Not only that it can kind of shock me with what it's doing visually, but that on a story level, it could stay in your head. And that is what adds on to the rewatchability, because you want to watch it a couple of times. One, to get the little clues. I had to watch it at least 3 times to pick up all the little nods and all of the little hints that are sprinkled through. But also, I like the message that they're planting here, because I also think it's a very relative message to what's going on today. It's like, what do people do to become famous? And this could be for YouTubers, TikTokers, all sorts of people. I think this is a very great cautionary tale on the lengths people are willing to go to be famous. And at the end of the day, if you achieve it, was it worth it? Was it worth what you paid for? The things you might have had to give up, the friends you had to leave behind, the people you had to fuck over? Was it worth it? And if you can answer that question and say yes, then hey, good for you. But a lot of people who get there, and a lot of, even if you see old time celebrities or older stars or older athletes or different interviews, you can see in a lot of them, they have a lot of regrets, and they have a lot of different things they wish they didn't do. Yeah, they made it to the mountain, but what did it cost? What was the price? And this might be an extreme version of that, but it still hits home the same point. Who do you have to step over? I mean, in this case, who did he kill to finally get the top spot, right? And it wasn't even directed towards the person he's trying to take out. He put people that trusted him, that were his buddies, that were his friends, he put them all in direct danger, all for one night, one ratings, to get himself to the top. And I think that is the overall message of this film. It's really a character study at the end of the day. It's a character study, and it's a study on people and what people are willing to do to achieve the fame and the adulation that they desperately seek. And it kind of makes you question it too. Like, what would you do? And I mean, at this point, losing your wife, it's like, yeah, I've already given up enough. And the demon was like, no, there's so much more you could give up. And I think when he was going into this, or at least my general take of it was, he didn't stop this show, and he kept going because he felt like there was nothing left to give. And that's another strong point, is there's always stuff left to lose. Even if you're at the lowest point of your life, and we'll go to a little PSA here, has nothing to do with the movie, but I think it's important to stress. No matter how low of a point you have in your life, no matter what struggles and trials you go through, you can always hit a different kind of rock bottom, and you can always pull yourself out of that too. And I mean, I'll share a personal story with you, and why this movie in particular hits me harder, and why I might be grading it slightly more on a curve, but I feel a 9 is fair. But in my life, I went into the military. I have struggled with PTSD. And my wonderful love of our lives have gone through some really hard situations where we were living in a hotel before we got our place and things like that. And we had real struggles. And I feel like this movie, there comes a point where you hit certain points in your life where you want the quick and easy way. You just want to get shit done and over with, and you want to be in that good spot. And I think what really spoke to me about this movie is that it validated a lot of my choices I made in life, because I was like, holy shit, I could have fucking just cashed it in with a demon, been like, yeah, make everything in my life better. But I didn't. I chose the hard path, and now we're good off. And now I can do my streams, and I got my place, and I'm happy where I'm at. And I think for Jack, and in relation to his character, maybe had he suffered the first loss and learned his lesson and put in the work, he could have got the same result. But once again, he wanted to take a shortcut, and he paid the price for it. And I think at the end of the day, it's a good message to people that no matter how hard your situation is and no matter what your struggle in life is, you will get through it. It feels like at the time you're not going to. And I can empathize with people out there. I've been through a lot of shit. I've had a lot of setbacks. And I've come out on the other side, and I'm in a better place now than I was back then. And I think maybe that's why I connect with this movie so much, because I see the shortcuts I thought about taking, and I go, damn, man, I am so glad I didn't try to take the easy way. Like, I wake up, I go to work, even when I don't want to. I am fucking sore. We had the biggest concert at the bar that I work at doing security, and there were only 3 of us, and we got hammered, and we were through the week. But we put in the hard work. We busted our ass. I'm sore as shit today doing this review, but goddamn, was it worth it? And watching a movie like this, it makes me realize, like, yeah, Jack is wrong, because at the end of the day, there's no shortcut. There's no easy answer to your goals. If you want to be the best, then you've got to put in the work. You don't always have to fuck people over and find an alternate way to do things. You have to put in the work. You are the architect to your own life, to your own design, to where you want to be in life. If you build your house on a solid foundation, eventually it'll settle, and you'll have a strong house that's not built on quicksand. And it'll be a good foundation for you, or if you have kids or whatever, it'll be a good foundation for your future. But if you take the easy way, to me, it's like building a house on quicksand. Eventually it all comes down. And, you know, you get a good feeling too when you busted your ass and you put in the work, and you know, even if it doesn't succeed, you did everything you could. You made it happen. And I felt like part of Jack's struggle in this movie is he doesn't feel like he made it happen. And at the end of the day, maybe he didn't. It was outside forces that he tried to control that were pulling the strings. You can't trust that. You can't trust other people to make you successful, to make you feel better about you. At the end of the day, the only one who could do that is you. You are the only person who can do that. And you are the one who makes the choices at the end of the day of how your life is going to turn out, right or wrong. And yes, there is extenuating circumstances. Everybody has them, but you can either have those happen and become better from them, or you can let them control you and steer the course of your life. And that's just me. Maybe I'm reading super fucking deep into this movie, but for me, that's what I got out of it, is that when you let other people and influences steer your life, then you're forced into the path you choose. You didn't make the choice. You let other people make the choice for you. You let them tell you who you are and who you want to be until you can't fucking identify who you started out as. And that's just my take on it. Deanne says, some people are just adversary to striving to work for what they want, only the easy way for them. They never content with what they have because they haven't worked for it. Exactly. I 100% agree. I think at the end of the day, for Jack and what I got out of the movie, striving, I gotcha. I think at the end of the day, for me, Jack's character and this hotel in general, and this whole movie in general, is a cautionary tale of taking the easy way and taking shortcuts. Like, you could read it as a simple, on the base level, a simple, possession story. But I think that what makes the movie so great is you can also pull off deeper themes from everything that's being said. And you can apply this situation to a lot of other situations where, like, yeah, there are those people where they only want to take a shortcut. And it's easy because that's what shortcuts are perceived. They're the easy route. Get it done right away. But the problem with that is you're not looking down the road. You're not looking at what is going to happen. What is the consequence? Because every choice, every decision in this world has consequences. There's that saying, for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. And I believe very strongly in that. Like, things you do, choices you make, big or small, they all have consequences. Everything you do in life has a reaction that's going to happen. And at the end of the day, you have to own that because you chose that. That's something that I think this character chose not to look at. And he paid the price twice. He had a second chance to get back on that road. But once you're on it, once you have taken that shortcut, there's no turning back. You're on that road, and it's very hard to get off of it. And you'll see in this movie, there's lots of points Jack had his opportunity to fucking take that left turn off of that fucking road and just do things right. And so that's why I say Jack Delroy and the character that was created here is not so simplistic. It feels very real because you can see his point of view. You can also see the other side of it, which I explained. But then you can also see the point where, yeah, he's already given up a lot. And it's like, fuck it. Like, this can't be worth nothing. I lost the love of my life. And in the end, this show is all he has. This is it. This is him. If he loses this, who is he? Who's Jack Delroy without his show? And I get it. I get that. You made a terrible decision. And like I said, you're locked into that choice. And it's like, who the fuck am I if I'm not this? If this isn't me, and I've lost the only other person who knows me for me, who am I? All I got left is how my friends and these bigwigs and everybody perceives me. And I think that's the great and tragic thing about this story. Is that at the end of the day, I think if Jack loved himself and he loved who he was, if he appreciated everything around him and really took the meaning of his wife's death and took it as he could start over and find out for himself who Jack Delroy is instead of trying to get validation through his television show, through the persona. And it's a sad, tragic thing that happens to a lot of these famous people. Because at the end of the day, you spend years building up a persona. You get all of this adulation. People fucking love you. What are you without that? Who are you? Well, hell, you haven't been that person in 20 years. And now you got to decide and you got to find out who you are. And it's not an easy road. Had he taken that path, would he have had a late night with the devil? Anyways, in the comments below, let me know this is the biggest breakdown I've done for a review. I know I got really in depth there, but I really want to explain why this movie is a 9 out of 10 for me and why I really love this film and why it might be my favorite horror movie of this year. And hopefully my explanations and my breakdowns, if you weren't interested, gets you interested, or if you've already seen the movie, hopefully my take on it, you can comment and let me know what your take of the movie was. But I just feel it's one of the best, most layered movies I've seen in a very long time. I feel like the acting is just chef's kiss. Not a bad fucking actor in this movie, to be quite honest with you. My point deduction has nothing to do with any of the acting. It's just certain things that they put in there. It does an A24 thing at the end, and it kind of does the elevated horror stuff. And I think that kind of will divide the audience on how they feel when they get to the end of this film. But all in all, I fucking love this movie. I think it's a challenging movie, and I think whether you love or hate it, it's the kind of movie that gets the response out of you. And that's important. And not in a sucky way. It's not a bad acted movie. It's not a bad shot movie. It's not, this movie sucks. It's more, I don't understand. Trust me, when you get to the fucking ending, a lot of it's like, okay, I got to go back because there's some shit I'm not getting. But the brilliant part about the movie is all the clues are there. And I laid out just a few hints. You got to find out the rest for yourself. Look, if I did a whole fucking breakdown of this movie, we'd be here for like 3 hours. If I pointed out everything and all the significant pieces, it would take me goddamn forever to get to the end of this. But all I can say is definitely watch this movie. Make your own decisions on it. It sounds Macbethian to be or not to be. Yeah, Macbethian. Yeah, I agree. It's one of those movies that it is really showing you the downfall of a person. And the thing where this could have went wrong, where it all could have fell apart, Cromwell, is the character. I think if you don't have David Dastmalchian, this is one of those films where you take out his performance, this whole fucking movie falls apart. This is a case where actors in this movie, I can't picture other people subbed in. Like, David Dastmalchian is Jack Delroy. He is this character. He fucking pours his heart out into this role. And that's why I kind of don't like this AI controversy surrounding the movie, because I think it diminishes the talent and the amount of work and time and effort that went into crafting a great story. I don't give a fuck about a title card maybe being AI generated. Like, if the rest of the movie doesn't come off to me as cheap or not thought out or there was no passion, then yes, I'd be like, fuck this. This is just a gimmick. They want money. But this isn't that. This is a movie that wants people to question what's going on. It wants you engaged with it. They had fucking fun. You could tell they had a blast making this film. You could feel the passion in this movie. You can feel the love that they had for this. Love this. Felt like a classic Twilight Zone story. Absolutely high ground, Cantina. 100% agree with you. This does feel like the Twilight Zone, because if you guys, I know a lot of you people are getting up there with me, right? Where my older people at. Twilight Zone was fucking brilliant. I could tell you right now, yes, AI is bullshit. I do agree. But I will also take the stance that I don't think it was misused in this particular case. And I think that controversy took away from how great this movie is. But yes, high ground, Cantina, I do agree. This movie reminded me a lot of that. I couldn't put my finger on what I was thinking about, but yeah, Twilight Zone. It's like every Twilight Zone episode, and I do mean, unless there's one I'm thinking of that the fan base doesn't like, every Twilight Zone episode I fucking love. And it's corny, it's in black and white, but there's just something to, they knew the effects weren't good and they needed the story. And this felt like that. This isn't about demons and things like that. It is. That's the hook. That's what gets people in. But the movie wants you to see the other themes. This movie wants you to feel like Jack Delroy. This movie wants us to judge this character. So at the end of the day, to me, this movie is a character study. This is just downright a character study, and it makes us look inward, and it makes you question what would you do in that situation. Now we could all say, "Oh, fuck no, I wouldn't make a deal with the devil. I wouldn't fucking do this shit." But would you really? Let me just put it to you this way: I've taken the hard road in my life, and I made the choices that I've made, and I don't regret them. But if I was in Jack's situation and I already fucking lost my wife and we're already down this road, I can understand that other point of view. Like, fuck it. What do I have left to lose? I lost the only woman I loved. I'm about to lose my fucking show. And I'm about to lose essentially who I am as a person. So fuck it. We're already cruising down this, baby. Let's ride the wheels till they come off. Like, I get it. And that's what makes this movie so great, is because it really challenges you and it really forces you into realizing there's not an easy choice. Like, yes, he made the poor decisions in the beginning to get to where he's at. But when you get to where you're at, then it's like it's not an easy question to answer. And this movie doesn't give you easy answers. It makes you really question, if I was in that situation, could I do it? Like, would I do it? What would I do to stay on top? And I think that's the brilliance behind this movie. Nope, no deal with the devil for me. Too Catholic for that, yeah. Catholic guilt, I understand that. But no, that's the great part about this movie. And that's why I wanted to have this kind of sort of long breakdown and just give you my thoughts and my interpretation of the film. Because for me, it really is a movie of choices. And it's just one man's bad decision making. And the thing that fucking sucks is, even I've rewatched this movie like 3 times. I still fucking love this guy. Like, David Dastmalchian gives the best performance, I think, of his career. And he is so fucking good. Like, if you watch this movie for nothing else, watch it for this man's performance, because to evoke the kind of emotions that he is expecting you to feel, and to get behind somebody who's morally ambiguous, to say the least, and for an actor to walk that line, honestly, I'm going to be downright honest, I cannot imagine anybody else who could have walked the kind of fine line that he has to walk in this film for this character. I can't do it. I mean, there's probably some actors who could do it, but I mean, this just feels like a tailor-made role for him. This feels like one of those performances that you hear about where this is that actor's role. This is like, and this is why I really want to push this movie, because I feel like this dude needs work. Please, people, give this man more movies. Like, what the fuck? I seen this man appear in some movies. He was in The Dark Knight. He was in the Suicide Squad. Not to be confused with Suicide Squad. The good one. The Suicide Squad. And he played a goddamn good... Okay, I'm a huge DC fan. You guys know. Name of the channel, General Zod's Fandom. So, who the fuck gave a shit about Polka Dot Man? But David Dastmalchian gives... You want to hug the fucking Polka Dot Man at the end of that movie. You're like, it's going to be okay, buddy. It'll be all right. Like, that's this man's talent. Please, Hollywood, give this man more fucking movies. Can we get him out there more? Because I'll be honest with you, I have yet to see a movie he's in that I thought fucking sucked. He's very picky, obviously, about his roles. And he really, this proves he has the talent to carry a movie. 100%. Like, there's certain people who won't get lead roles because of... And David Dastmalchian has a very weird look to him. And I think in Hollywood, they pigeonhole people like that. You've seen it with Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken's a very odd-looking dude, but he is a goddamn great character performer. And David Dastmalchian should be a leading man, but I think because of kind of his odd look about him, it's very hard for him to get these kinds of serious roles. And I think this movie alone proves this man should be acting in more movies. This is a guy who I will see a movie that he is in, whether he's in a small role or a large role, because he's just that goddamn good. And the shame part is he doesn't have a name like Leonardo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt or Tom Hanks, because I think they just feel like he doesn't have any marketability. And I think this movie does prove he can carry a movie on his own. And it's a shame that actors like this kind of get pushed to the side because they don't have the look, or they don't have the X factor, or whatever the fuck it is Hollywood judges acting on these days, or the right politics, like all that bullshit. This is a man who comes in, he clocks in, he does his job, he does it excellently, and he should be getting more movies. So, David Dastmalchian, I don't know if you'll ever come across this, but bro, fucking... your performance alone is a 10 out of 10. Fucking great job. You knocked it out of the park. And, buddy, I hope you get more fucking movies. I really do, because this is one of the best performances I've seen in a horror movie in a very long time. And don't worry, I'll get to Sydney Sweeney and Tiger Free, because the next one I'm going to do is a compare and contrast between The Omen and Immaculate. And that stupid bullshit argument, which one came first. Technically, The Omen... But that's an argument for another day. But these are other two people who are rising on the scene, who I think it's about time. And this whole thing with Sydney Sweeney and people saying they don't know why she's acting because she can't act. Go fucking see Immaculate because you're all fucking stupid. Like, she's a great actress. And I hate this fucking bullshit thing. They were model, blah, blah, blah. They can't act. Shut the fuck up. Like, acting to me isn't based on what your profession is. Either you're good or you're not good. And I can tell you right now, I am not particularly a fan of Immaculate, but I will say she carries that fucking movie on her back. And why I bring this up during this review is because David Dastmalchian is the same way. Like, there's just these certain actors and actresses that I think should be Anna Taylor-Joy or what's the chick from Wednesday, who I really like. Fuck, it's going to come back to me after this stream. But anyways, you get my point. There's a lot of these great actors and actresses that are coming up that I think are really challenging other people, and it gives me hope because I thought with the Tom Hanks, Brad Pitts, Leonardo DiCaprio, Julia Roberts, and all them were done. We were going to be in for some trouble. But there's a lot of new people, if you look, and especially in the world of horror, that are going to that are coming up and really setting the bar for what a movie could be and for what acting could be, and that are pure performers, and that they can carry a movie and make you believe in what you're watching. And at the end of the day, that's what movies are about. It's about fucking entertainment. It's about enjoying what you watch. I watched that fucking terrible Rebel Moon Part 2, and if you want to see me and PB's watch along, go check it out. It's fucking hilarious. It was fucking god-awful. I had a link for my people to join. We'll be doing another one next Tuesday. God, it's got to be a better movie. But that was an example of terrible fucking writing and just actors not really given any kind of direction. And so I think this is a good showing of what these underrated, unknown actors and actresses can do. Like, give them a chance and support these movies, because the more people who support the bullshit like Rebel Moon 2 or just watch it just to shit on it, you're just giving Hollywood a reason to put out more trash. And we had enough trash in 2023. To be honest with you, it was a very weak year, especially for horror. This year is starting off with a fucking bang. Thank you, Jenna Ortega. Yes, Jenna Ortega, I knew when I saw her in that season of You, I said, this kid is going places. And then I fucking call that. Jenna Ortega might be another one of the best female actresses of this time period. And I'm just, I know it's a bold statement, Cotton, but I will fucking die on that hill. She's been phenomenal in whatever I've seen her in. She is a fucking true blue actress, and she's young for the kind of fame she's achieving, and good for her, because she puts in the fucking work, and she doesn't talk politics, and she does her job. So, and Cromwell also said, and now how how to convince the Hollywood elite. Yeah. Deanne says, have to go make supper. Great review. Thank you, Zodby. Thank you, too, for stopping in. But thank you, everybody who stopped in for this review. I'm going to cut it right here. I've fucking rambled on long enough. But these are my thoughts. My next video will probably be a little bit longer, because I'm going to do a compare and contrast between The First Omen, which, if you haven't seen that, please support this movie because it's the best prequel of this year, and Immaculate, which I might get a little bit of heat on this. I'm not a woman, so some of those themes don't exactly apply to me, but I will talk about my gripes with that film and how I think The First Omen did it a little bit better. So we're going to do kind of a versus, and I'm going to do Immaculate versus The First Omen, and where I think one is better than the other. I am right by your side. Thank you. I appreciate it, Kermel. And thank you, everybody who's watched this. Please share this video. Please do all the YouTube things, the thumbs up and all that, because the algorithm fucking hates us content creators, and they want to push big bullshit people who kiss Hollywood's ass. And if you don't want to do that, come hang with me. I'll give you a straight review with all the facts, cut out the bullshit, just my thoughts. You're more than welcome to leave a comment. Let me know what you think of my review. I had someone leave me a comment on my Abigail review. It was great. I enjoy the feedback. And thank you very much for watching this. And I'll see you in the next video. Until then, everybody knows the one and only rule here in the Fandom Zone: kneel before General Zod.